Hey everyone, rudyxx here to talk about another RPGalooza game, Chrono Cross. For those of you that don't know, RPGalooza is a project I started involving playing through a huge list of RPG titles, ranging from Western style to Japanese. And while I'm not a huge RPG connoisseur, I do like to dabble in them every now and then, and so hopefully I can provide for you all a more modern day gamer's look at my experiences with them. So, with that out of the way, on to Chrono Cross. I had actually played Chrono Cross a number of times in my life before starting the RPGalooza list. However, it has definitely been long enough that I had forgotten most of the game going into it. One of the things I did remember though is how to recruit a number of characters, so I figured I would just recruit whoever and play as whoever I had at the time, even if they weren't a very good character. Something really cool about Chrono Cross is that it's set up in a way that you can basically just swap characters around as you please, with little to no detriment as long as you understand how weaknesses and stats work. In fact, if anything, the game rewards you in some cases by swapping around to characters of specific elements, since weaknesses and the multipliers from stat boosting skills can get pretty ridiculous. Chrono Cross is definitely one of those games where the more you know, the better your journey through it is going to be. So even if you didn't particularly care for the mechanics of the game the first time you play it, it's got a fair amount of depth to it that reading around a bit can make a second or third playthrough a lot more enjoyable. And speaking of enjoyable, my experience with the game for RPGalooza was quite an enjoyable one. While I did eventually settle on a specific party, it was pretty fun to just mess around with whoever I came across. I tried to use as many different characters as possible by essentially replacing someone every time I gained a new someone in the group. This also added a bit to the story, as the game features some sort of wacky auto-translate system for the dialogue depending on who's speaking. Seeing certain characters I wouldn't normally expect to see in a variety of situations was pretty fun, but sadly didn't change the fact that I don't particularly care too much for the story. It's been maybe 20-ish years since I originally played the game, so all the game's plot twists are sort of lost on me at this point, and it's basically become kind of a generic RPG to me with some random references to Chrono Trigger thrown in there. And I know that the story on some deeper level has a lot going for it, but unfortunately since I already know all the plot twists, I got very little out of the game story-wise. At this point in my life, I've played enough video games and read enough books that it generally takes a lot to impress me. And since there is so much of the story that is kind of based on the shock of the plot twist, it's like, once you know them, then this game is just a story about some kid going on a generic adventure that ends with them needing to collect some shit and kill some dragons or whatever. If this was a book or a movie, then it would definitely be one of those that you just read once and never again. But at least with this game, it's a video game and the gameplay is pretty stellar for an RPG. I have no idea if I was blown away with this game when I played it originally, but I do know I loved the music well enough that it was one of the first OSTs I ever bought. And once you've heard the battle theme a few dozen times, it starts to get incredibly old, but for the most part the soundtrack is a solid 10 out of 10 for me. However, a super solid soundtrack can't save an entire game from still being a pretty mediocre experience. Now, I think Chrono Cross is a pretty cool game, but I still am giving it a 6 out of 10 for RPGalooza review because it's still just a little above average for an RPG. Like, it's really got some neat things in it, but it also drags on too long, has a mediocre story if you already know all the plot twists, and the battle system only can be so interesting once you learn to use and abuse it. The story having choose your own adventure style branching paths might add a bit to the replayability of the game, but like I mentioned before, I've played this game a number of times over the years, so it's become very stale to me at this point. If I was going into this fresh, I think I'd be more inclined to give it something like an 8 or something out of 10, but unfortunately for the RPGalooza list, I have already squeezed as much as I can out of this game and can really only replay it every few years to get whatever little I can still get out of it. Anyways, that's it for Chrono Cross. If you enjoyed this video and would like to look forward to many more RPG reviews in the future, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in seeing me actually play through a variety of games in real time, make sure you follow my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/rudyxx. Thanks for watching and see you next time.